Welcome to Podcast IRC, conversations with Indigenous scholars to advance understandings and gain new knowledge, hosted by the Indigenous Research Center at Salish Kootenai College.
She's smiling because the words say, I have a girlfriend, but she's poor. I'll marry you. And then ends up saying to both of them, why don't you get closer?
Tell us about the song.
Yeah. Well, the song is called Telling of the Deeds. So during this, when a Crow warrior comes back from any engagement, he has what they call the bringing home of the warriors. And it's it's real similar to the Salish scalp dance, like actually really, really similar. But at one point in the dance, they tell war deeds. This particular song was made to remember a deed. So, or like it's kind of a bragging thing. So they say like when you collect deeds, you have more, I guess, right to brag. So that's all. This was one of many songs sung during the bringing home of the warriors and the telling of deeds dance. That was a guy named Dale Warren that was singing that song.
What did he say at the end? What it meant?
He said, I have a girlfriend, but she's poor. You come closer to me. Talking to another lady.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
That's typical. There's like a song here that talks about that. Well, it's like almost like teasing or making fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it says it's like it's like people talking to women. They're telling them not to move their legs in a certain way, otherwise they'll get pregnant. Something like that. But I think it's a little more explicit than that. But it's one of them types of songs. Yeah.
This is a theme throughout a lot of war-related type songs. I know, like even among the Kiowa and different tribes, they'll speak of things like this.
Yeah.
If you ever hear 49 songs, they'll talk about, I don't care, I got another one.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and
it's kind of carried over into contemporary.
Isn't even 49's like its origin kind of is related to war, like warriors.
Coming back, yeah.
Coming back.
Right.
One story is that, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, we were talking before, it seemed like about like courting and love songs and all the rest of that, but trying to make sense of like having a love song or a courting song and then this idea of war deeds, like putting that together.
Well,
like why talk about?
I think they're married up pretty easy back, especially back then, because a woman didn't want to marry an undeeded man. You know, like, because if you're the spiritual head of the home, you have to have been proved yourself spiritually, and that's why war was so valued, because it was the ultimate test of your spiritual power. So a woman is gonna, if a man has many deeds, then she's gonna be like, that's the one I want. Or maybe her brothers might say, we want that guy for you, so they'll approach him. or something,
And or leadership.
Yeah.
The community will look at those people that have a lot of deeds, or in Blackfoot, a lot of transfers. And they'll say, well, hey, that guy's in the running. He's not our leader, but he's in the running for it.
Yeah. So
and it will be up to us to put in there.
Oh, my bad. That's on me.
Do I got to do that again?
Take two.
But you bring up a good point about transfers, because I've personally heard that in Blackfoot country where people will say like, oh, he doesn't have any transfers, or this is what he was transferred. Like that's a point. It's like a point of saying this is what he possesses. It's not like a bragging thing, but it's like saying, well, this is what kind of guy he is.
So when you're out at a okan where everybody gathers, okukatsini is when everybody comes together. Mate pomwawa is nobody. Is somebody who has no transfers. You're literally a nobody, and you can't really help out because you have no standing. So the more transfers you have, the more of those you have, the more stature you have, and they'll look upon you as someone of value, leadership or courting, or you have the ability to get it. Not necessarily aesthetics,
right?
But because you have those, it's indicated that you're very rich. You can buy things, transfers, and deeds are another thing. War deeds are a whole nother thing. So, but again, our ways are based on war. They're based on, I'm not sure of the word enemy, but other tribes that came in. They're in our ceremonies.
Yeah, it seems to make sense, right? Just from the way it was, I guess. War was, but I don't know if that's true. Is it true? Like, so the frequency of war increased from about 1700, 1800 or so when the horses came, right?
Well, horses came, and then expansion in the east forced many tribes of the Great Lakes over. So the frequency of battle rose, right?
Risen,
increased.
One story, this
increased.
This Tsuutana guy, Bruce Starlight, told the story about how Crees pushed into Dene territory and pushed them down, up probably by the Slave Lake area, pushed them down into Blackfoot territory, and that's how they became part of our area and where they reside now in Calgary. So there's, you'd have to listen to the stories from within to kind of get a sense of where they were in history and how they interacted with other tribes, if they were battle or trading or allies. Treaties. Treaties were a big thing amongst tribes. Some of them could last a day. Some of them could last for a long time. It's just a matter of
an hour.
For sure. Just for them to pass.
There's one story about that, about one of my relatives, how he got his name, was they were making treaty with your people. And then, I don't know if did I talk about this in another podcast? I don't know if I did.
What do you mean, you people?
You people.
Whose people?
Your people over there. You people. No, your ancestors, I should say. But apparently they came together on hunting grounds, and then, neither of them wanted to fight, so they kind of made peace. And one of my ancestors was there, and so they made peace. And then
I think that's in that Hugh Dempsey book, The Blackfoot Treaties. Talks about that.
One of them stole a bow before the two walked off, and then they noticed their bow was gone. So they come back and said, "Hey, one of your guys took our bow," and they said, "Well, you just broke the treaty. The battle was on." So maybe 15 minutes.
If that's
15-minute treaty.
When we look into history and we say, well, that defines tribes, how would we define ourselves today using those same models of measure, of deeds, transfers? What today would constitute those things now?
I mean, I'm trying to wrap my mind around this idea of these deeds and like what it is exactly you're trying to do. And I get that you have some kind of recognized spiritual power if you've been able to successfully do this. But I mean, we're talking about, sorry, like conflict between people. And so because there's conflict of some kind, you have to be capable. And so that those deeds are important to prove that you're capable. But then it almost sounds like as much you are proving that, I mean, I wouldn't say like a good guy, but you're proving something else about yourself in addition to spiritual power and like ability in battle.
Ego.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, so that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see like the deed? Like, what are you trying to do? That bit.
Today or back then?
Just like those,
Yeah.
the Maori or the Samoan, they have those hakas, and it's meant to scare the other people, right?
Right.
Similar, I would imagine.
Because I mean, like, if you're trying to prove yourself to everybody that knows you so that you can get married, so that you can be looked at in a certain way, I mean, that's a little bit different than having spiritual power, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, are you going?
I don't know if proving yourself is the right term.
Mm.
It's the collection of deeds is only possible by the amount of spiritual power one has.
Mhm.
So the belief is that it's not even necessarily like proving you have spiritual power. It's, I think, the prerequisite for anything after, I guess. I don't know if proving yourself is the right word, maybe.
Well, I mean, it's like you're saying that having these deeds are going to affect the way people are looking at you, the way they act in relation to you, whether or not they, are going to want you to marry their sister. And so, like, that's going to affect your life in a lot of ways
Mm-hmm.
and how people
Yeah.
treat you.
So the same principle as getting a degree. Oh, he only has an AA. Oh, well, that guy's got a BA. Well, that guy's got a master's.
Right.
We'll take him over those guys. It's kind of similar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it seems like it follows the importance of what it follows what is important and the time. Like in that time, it was war because you had to defend yourself. You had to be offensive of your territory so you can secure food. It's really about survival. So today, we've wrestled with this before, is what would count today as a good deed in a way that we might want to put ourselves out there to honor somebody in that way, like in the Syulm, or what Aaron's calling the scalp dance. How would we say, we want to throw one of these because we want to celebrate somebody's success, their deeds. Well, what would be the equivalent between these eras from that time and today? And so education is an obvious one, but does everybody think that?
Well, I mean, so it's like it's some personal success. So it relies on your ability to do something or you having done something, but it doesn't it's not for your like benefit individually, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you did isn't just like
I think it's probably multi-layered because just like Mike said, and I know it's like this with other tribes, I imagine here, where the counting of the deed, the proclaiming of it brings good fortune to those around you. So so you need people to go out and accomplish things because by them just saying it over something, like at a gathering. So you're like, oh, we still need you guys to go out. So it's both individual, but it's also the group saying we need individuals to do that.
But then whatever you did, I mean, you didn't just do it so that you would personally gain from that, right?
Well,
So
I don't
it's
know.
like it
I
lends-
think I can't pretend to understand the psychology of every individual.
Yeah.
But I would assume, just like anybody, there was a couple selfish dudes in history that were like, I just want to do it for myself.
Right. No, and I mean, I'm not even saying about like why the person is doing it. I'm talking about like the nature of what they did. So it's got to be seen as something that was good for that person, but hey, that's good for us too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I think that's why war was valued and still is, because it it's easy to grab that one and say, oh, it's good for all of us too, you know.
Yeah.
Where like it's pretty tough to grab like, oh, I wrote a nonfiction book about a haunted house. It's like, well, that's cool. It's still a pretty big accomplishment writing a book, but it's like the group isn't going to see that as something like where like when the boys in Arley won state championship and the dance was put on for them, it makes more sense to people because in a lot of ways it put Flathead Reservation Indian basketball on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Like it said, hey, these guys are just as legit as other reses, you know? So in a way I could see the group saying like, yeah, because now people are looking at us here, you know?
I kind of like thought that had as much to do with like their suicide prevention efforts.
That was after.
Oh, was that
all that the warrior movement stuff was after.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was all a part of it though, part of the consideration. It was the deed, you know, actually accomplishing this thing that only one school out of 300 or so.
Yeah, and especially in Class C in Montana.
Yeah.
That's the big deal.
But also I think their overall demeanor, I mean, they're not all perfect kids, I don't think, just because they're teenagers, but they were exhibiting something good in the community. They were bringing hope to during that time when there was a lot of suicides. But I don't think it was necessarily just because of that. It was accumulation
we have
of all
high
of
expectations of those kids. They're just 13 to 18 years old, and we expect and demand perfection. And when they don't, because we want that accolade of we're the champions, and we're from a small community that's oppressed, for lack of a better,
disenfranchised.
And when we get it, it's awesome.
Yeah,
and we can talk about it. We don't get a chance to talk about it much.
And I think it's not always
in our communities
self-serving in the sense of like we want that team to be perfect, because it actually I think really comes down to knowing they're capable of it. And that's hard to get young people to believe in that, because then they take it as pressure. You're putting pressure on me, you know, but really it's like, well, I'm not going to ask any kid who can't do that to do it. We're asking you guys to do it because we know you're fully capable of it. And those boys had a lot of pressure from 7th grade. People were already saying they're going to win state.
Yeah.
From 7th grade, they're being told this. And they stepped up and did it, you know? So as the group, just like a war party or when men go out, and some women, right? It's legit. Like that pressure for people to step up to that pressure, like it's a wish in a way, right? People are wishing that on them. So
I'm kind of thinking about like, you know, there's always that, not always, but that high school athlete, and most generations who's just amazing, that draws people, that, you know, they're holding this person up, and they're able to kind of draw people together. It seems like there's almost like a difficult time once they've graduated, once they don't have like access to that high school sport, and like how do they continue to be, because everyone's held them up for so long, right? And so they have to kind of exhibit this thing, but if they're not going to do it that way that they did before, what then, you know? So I wonder about this idea of like recognizing that, if that can maybe help that transition, like you've done something and that's being recognized and we're all together.
So there's got to be another avenue. Is that what you're saying? Another avenue to show your deed, or to be a benefit to the community, to the point that it.
Because it just seems like there's always that sense of, oh, the high school athlete, everybody looks up to them, and then it's like, as soon as they graduate or as soon as they're done with sports, it's like you're just waiting for this almost inevitable letdown. Like they can't maintain that.
Yeah, part of that I think too is that for the last 80 years, the expectation was just to graduate high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
We don't realize like that's pretty recent, right? Graduating high school is a big deal. So the expectation after that was just to live life. So the letdown for the athlete, I think, is worse, right? Because they feel like, oh. So now the new expectation has to be college. Maybe. I don't know. Could be. I'm not necessarily in agreement. I don't know if I want my kids necessarily. As long as they're productive, that's my biggest thing.
Yeah.
You got to be productive people.
Yeah.
But I would say the role of like telling of deeds and the role of these scalp dances, these things like that are different now than they were back then. Not in the sense of like, oh, it's modern era, but it's more like, I think the purpose of a dance like that now is motivating for the achiever. Where like in the past, it was just a venue to do those acts of telling deeds. It was expected that each individual was going to accomplish something. Just the accomplisher was expected that this dance was going to happen. Where that's not the case now. Where today, those things are that's the motivator, is to say, hey man, we're going to do this. If you accomplish this, we'll put this on. That's a big thing. That's a big thing, especially for like culturally minded youth, which there's not many of them, but they want that. Just like another sense is like in the powwow world, they'll be like, you want to accomplish something so you can put on a special. So you have a reason to put on a special. And it's a way of saying like, this is what I did. I got my master's degree, so I'm putting a special on for it. So it's both, you're hooking up the crowd. They get to see a good show, but all the chicken dancers get to get out there and win something. But then at the same time, you're telling the whole group, which that's the point, of saying this is what I accomplished.
So it seems like there's got to be, who decides, or how do you decide what are the other avenues of being able to be recognized for a deed? And I know it can't just be education, because there's a lot of people who decide that they don't want to go that route, or it's not for them. So what else is there after high school? So you don't make state, you don't go to school. What is there for you?
Well, I think first and foremost, it still always has to be veterans. Anytime someone from this community returns home from overseas, I think that dance should be put on. I think it should even get to the point where it's expected, where the community expects it. Because of preservation and culture laws, the community here is still in a position of approaching people and saying, hey, can we put this dance on for this reason? And then, okay, kind of a thing. And that's going to be that way for a while, I would imagine. What do you think? Since you're kind of the man behind the...
Yeah, I never took that approach to ask, just did it. I consulted with some folks just to get some details, and they just recruited people to say, I want, this is what we're going to do. This is how it's been done. This is how I want you to help. So
approaching the people, the deed.
Oh, the person who, I don't know about that. That was...
Because I doubt you're going to get someone to get off the plane and say, I came back from war, and approach you and say, hey, let's put on this dance I have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I
or his family might do that. In the old days, I imagine it was their family.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be the, who would it be? So it'd be the people who were kind of a witness to the deed, I guess. They would come back and would call for it. So then they would throw the...
So that by that rationale, this whole project that's going on right now is because of one person, or maybe few, that wrote a proposal and got this to come here. That in itself is a good deed. That should be praised in the community and brought to light, and be like, hey, look what's going on here. We're bringing back our indigenous thought, our thoughts that come from within, that are not compromised by outside beliefs. Maybe some of them are, but putting that together, by that rationale, we should be doing that for this, right?
Yeah, So I brought this up
You
before.
did last podcast.
I said we should have a dance for the achievement of this. That's a big deal, man.
Yeah. Well, I think we should.
I don't think we've quite stressed it enough because it's weird stressing it to the group that's in the know, and be like, it's a big deal, huh?
It's a
Brenda?"
big deal.
Brenda, tell us we're a big deal.
And then Brenda
guys
would
are
tell it
such
to
a big
Tammy,
deal.
and Tammy would say it to Mike, and it's like, but already,
Hey guys, did you know we're a big deal?
yeah, we're a big deal.
yeah.
But already it's benefiting the community because like Mike got the grant and other faculty. We have three student interns. We brought in people from the outside, so like people get to reap the benefits of it. So I'd like to think it's not solely for us.
Mhm.
So in that sense, it fits all the criteria of putting on these dances.
Right.
Mhm.
I agree.
But again, we're put in a weird position because I don't know the dance, so I can't say, Shondine, I'm going to put this on, and it's really for you and what you did, and by writing this proposal, you would have to put it on for yourself in a sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Weird.
And that's going to be funky too.
Yeah.
But it might have to.
Well,
It would be an IRC thing where you would say this is for the IRC and what we've accomplished. But again, it's kind of an odd thing. But that's that's where we're at.
yeah.
Who put those shit?
So I thought of that when we first learned that we got this grant, and so I pictured people who have helped me, and I thought, okay, these are the people who I would honor, or who I would expect them to kind of narrate some of the good things, not that they did for me, but that they just do for the community in general. So here's a person I think who does good things, and I would throw this Syulm to kind of, to honor the deed of this center, but more to say, I'm going to honor you because you helped to make this happen.
Yeah. And I think that's just as important too, because then they tell us, like, when you put on these dances, these ceremonies, sometimes the reason to put it on is just to put it on. You're saying, good things happened to me. I was fortunate this year. I'm healthy. So I'm going to put this on. I'm going to sponsor this.
Give back.
Then whatever happens after that is really not up to you. You just created the venue for it.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, it's difficult though, because there's the songs. People don't know the songs. The women are pretty strong in it now. My daughters and my wife, and there's a large group of people that participated and have participated, so they know what to do. They're fully prepared if something like that ever happened in the future. But it's just the guys are kind of pitiful. Don't know the songs very well.
Man, that's a reflection of Indian country today, man. Like, I think it's being carried by women,
right,
and the accomplishments of women.
Right.
Men, man, we're not doing anything.
When I worked at Blackfeet Community College and you went into the administration meetings, it was all women, very few men. I came to meetings over here, and a lot of the presidents at that time were all women from, I think just Cheyenne and Crow weren't women. All the other tribal presidents were women.
But we had one for a decade.
If you look at our communities, the roles are being reversed in this way of the women are being the providers now. They're the breadwinners, and the men don't know their role. And as a result, You know, you can bring psychology into this, and
Mm-hmm.
things are different for men. What are we doing now? What is our role? Whereas we're talking about back then, our role was to collect deeds. So what do we do as men if we don't have that venue to showcase that or continue that way of life? It's a whole different thinking now.
So would you say that if we create an environment where those things can thrive, do you think it would restore some of that stuff? Just like I was always told, like an Indian man should be able to ride a horse and sing a song. They used to always say that, like that was the idea, like kind of how you viewed being an Indian. And so these dances still require singers. Still, to me, I think it's a big deal.
But they don't ride a horse or speak the language, but they can sing it.
They can sing Cree.
Right? I'm not even a Sioux, but I sing Sioux.
Yeah, you can sing Sioux songs, Iranza. You
Right.
can sing Rikara songs
And know the difference.
know the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks to Mandarin and Eagle Whistle for that. So
Which was a woman who helped them revive those songs. If you read the scripts,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
and if
Helen Wilkerson.
yeah, and if you look at the famous Nighthawk singers and Cedric Walks, a lot of those songs that are sung were composed by his wife.
Hmm.
So even behind a good singer, there's still a woman who knows what they're doing, you know.
Yeah.
So a few years ago though, I was in standoff and I seen a war bonnet transfer. We actually sang for it, and they gave a war bonnet to a Mountie, and she was a lady. And the way it was explained to me was her accomplishment still reflected everything that of a man or any other person. I thought that was pretty cool. For one, I never seen a Mountie with a straight up war bonnet before, so it was kind of that sticks in your head, you know.
Well, that was her profession.
Yeah, that's her profession and what she did. So I think but nobody of their generation wants to be seen as the authority of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we always say like, well, this is not what our elders taught us. Well, those elders had to make decisions too to reflect the time.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
Or when the horse came, look at these guys riding horses.
oh, look at all these big
Right
guys.
down.
Or with like metal
Lazy.
arrow points, you know?
Yeah. Lazy.
They're like, look at these guys, they're metal.
Lazy.
And you're still over there cutting your hands on obsidian.
So this was one thing I toiled with too about related to this Syulm, and because in the past it's strictly a male thing, right?
Yeah.
And so Celicia and I would have conversations about, well, what about women? You know, I'm a man and I think like a man, but there's no women that. I mean, I don't. Where do we get to where we get to a point where we can honor women in an appropriate way, or is the Syulm an appropriate way to honor them?
In Blackfoot culture, there's a women's society, and I've heard a story where a man has no say in there, and he was trying to tell these women what to do, and so they fixed him a blanket with a dress on there, and they said, "Go sit here." Shut him up. You know? So vice versa in our society is the woman can override a man. She doesn't do it often, but she has the right to do so when you transfer in, is what I'm told. And it goes back to our creation story, when Napi was gonna say, well, everybody lives forever if I throw this buffalo dung in the water. And the woman said, no, I'll throw this rock in, and if it floats, we'll live forever. But if it sinks, we'll live forever, then we'll die. So she overrode his decision.
Even at creation.
Well,
I've been there.
Every day.
I've been there.
Overridden.
Overrode.
So this is how we handle
Men
it.
don't make decisions in their homes; they make proposals.
Just like some of the matrilineal tribes, like the Choctaw, when they have that game, the Little Brother of War game, the women are the ones who decide if they go to war or not.
Oh.
The men are just like, we were going to go to war. So no, play this game first. If you can't resolve it, then we'll decide if we're going to go to war.
It's funny how you say that, because even when my grandma talks about like the World War II era, she'll say things like, when we made a decision to send our men. That's how she'll say it. Like, and I know that like a whole bunch of women got together and say, are we going to let them join or not? But it was the idea that like they had some say in it, though. You know.
Yeah. The women weren't subservient. Like
no, I don't.
They had their role, and
that's
they
probably the
they
biggest
knew it.
misnomer in Indian country is that Indian
sure.
women
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
God. In fact, I would say I'm pretty subservient.
Well, you should be.
And I don't mind it. I think it's actually the thing. It's like kind of
You're
building
smart.
us to kind of be like,
That's like when Debo come, I'll be quiet.
I'll be quiet.
When he leave, I'll talk again.
Like that Key and Peele skit where they're talking. He's trying to talk tough about his wife. So he like looks around. And then pretty soon they're way out in the desert. And he's like still doing that.
Yeah.
He's like, no. But I think it's like the way these ceremonies, these dances, and just like a marriage, it's all like a partnership and there's a give and take on both sides. So we have to define what the give and the take is in these dances for today, for the time today. Just like it's a very real thing that Indian women are accomplishing the same, if not more, than Indian men, and those dances that speak of these accomplishments have to reflect that. They have to.
Right. So this is what we did. This is what we did during that 2 times we did that Syulm and Arli, because the girls team made it to state. They didn't finish first, but we thought, well, we should honor them equally. So the only option we had in that dance was there's a group of they call the fearless ones, and they're the women warriors, and the women warriors would they dress up like clowns, paint their faces black, put a bunch of crazy sticks on themselves, and they could go around during this Syulm and kind of torture and tease people, and that was kind of a way that they would be honored for their role in the war. But you put that into the times today, and for young teenage girls that they didn't really embrace it. They did it, but I just got this feeling that they didn't quite get this sense that they were being honored because they had to dress crazy, which for a teenage girl to put charcoal all over her face is probably not a thing they really wanted to do.
I think where that would have made sense, because it's just the nature of how we live now, is some sort of presentation had to be done first at school, or to explain why that is. Because see, in the Crow bringing home the warriors, they put black on their faces, but it's still done pretty regular. They even do it right off when the person gets off the plane from war. They'll do it right in the airport.
Oh, wow.
There's videos of it. It's pretty neat, but
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, they put black and they sing those society songs and the telling of deeds and stuff. But until it becomes the norm, it's always going to be that, like, they didn't quite get what they were supposed to do. But that's growing pains, right?
Right.
And that's just the nature of preservation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems like Native people, they don't want to make those steps. They hit those inconveniences. They're like, well, they didn't quite know, so probably won't do it again.
Right.
How do you think that happens? I've heard that a lot, man.
That's the death of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, it's a different way of learning. Usually you're just kind of around something and you see it, and then you start to pay attention, and you get to try some of it out, and you get what's going on that way. And if suddenly, like, something is if there's a presentation, right, then it almost feels like you're learning how to do a performance.
Yeah, and so that's the downside to that.
Yeah, you have to.
It has a sterilized kind of. It's not organic. I think
maybe like the first times aren't going to work out exactly how you would think they would, but it takes that, because the first time people are looking around and they haven't seen it before and they have no idea, like they don't even know what to look at. They don't know what to think about any of it. And then once they, are familiar with it, I recognize this.
But even this helps. Just talking about it and people hearing the word and hearing, like, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
So the challenge is what is the collective agreement back then? That's why the study of history is important for me. But what is it now? It's changed the collective agreement of what
Yeah.
it means to be Salish.
Yeah.
Now even Bitterroot Salish and Ponderay, those are two
Yeah.
different.
Where the 60s, you were just flathead,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And then with that
Lumped
was
in.
like, I'm just flathead,
Yeah.
you know, or like whatever it is.
Oh,
There's
we
still
were-
some flatheads out there. So.
Yeah, no, I know. I ran into them.
And we're-
I'm like, they still make you guys?
Or Pagan,
Yeah, Pagan or
Yeah.
the Blackfeet.
Southern
Now it's becoming-
Pagan.
Yeah.
So the more you know, the more you don't know, the more you
Mhm.
should want to know,
Mhm.
is what I.
Yeah.
So right now in Indian country, though, I especially see this. There's a major lack of confidence in
Mhm.
people, especially Indian men. So it's replaced with false confidence. So there's a deep insecurity that happens with Indian men. I suffered from it myself, you know, like every Indian guy does it, because majority of the mistakes you make in life can be attributed to that very thing. So when we say, hey, we're going to put this dance on, that requires a confident person to say, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
What do you
Mhm.
want me to do? You know, or I'll
Yeah.
show up on this day. And it seems like right now we have the hemming and hawing because it's a mask to say, like, I really don't want to be inconvenienced. You're going to ask me to do something in front of
That you
people.
don't know.
Yep, that I don't know. And really, once you're able to admit, I don't know what I'm doing, but you guide me. Let me know what I'm supposed to do, and
Mhm.
I'll do it. I don't know the songs, but man, I can keep a beat. And
Yeah.
I'll sway and rock when I'm supposed to, and I'll hoop and holler when you need me to. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that kind of attitude gets things done.
Yeah.
You know, just like.
But that's a
cow-
whole
it's a
psychological
whole-
rabbit hole we can go
man,
down.
It's a whole different.
Yeah.
It's like a cowman would rather have a dog that's too much than not enough. You know, you could always work a dog down. You can't work one up.
But there's trust required. Like if you're going to be confident enough to do
Yeah.
something that somebody asked you, you better trust them. Otherwise, like,
Dogs are very
Yeah,
trusting,
yeah.
though.
But
Cats
that's-
aren't.
all right.
If border collies could
Yeah.
sing, that's
You
Don't
have
they
the
kinda-
champions of champions.
Yeah,
right there.
then I don't need any of you.
Right? I got a bunch of pit bulls.
Yeah.
They look good, but they can't sing.
So that's a good question. How much of our culture loss and our inadequacies is related to confidence?
Also
Yeah.
affecting our identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say, "Well, I'm Crow," well, how do you know?
Yeah.
What are the collective agreements amongst you Crow people? Would
that was
indicate-
aggressive, wasn't it? The way
We're
you
really
said that?
aggressive.
That was-
Yeah. Oh, settle down. No.
amongst you crow people.
Jeez,
Jeez.
should I not talk so strongly?
Jeez.
But what is the collective agreement, though, amongst those people that would say, "That's it," or "These are the
Yeah,
things"?
and that's changing.
Mhm.
Right.
But then it's changing, but there's also a lack of confidence and even saying anything. So that it's all out of whack.
Mhm.
The flux capacitors, the space modulators.
The flux capacitor is not fluxing anymore.
Yeah, we're in retrograde.
Yeah.
Jeez. Mercury's been in retrograde for years. And that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. So this is the things that I want to know is okay. So let me step back a little bit. So what we did when we started this, when we decided to do this Syulm, is we casted a big net to everybody. Who wants to be part of this?
Yeah, even me.
Yeah.
Non-Salish
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Just everybody. And surprisingly, it was the ones who typically aren't invited to do certain things. They were the ones who stepped up and were there and actually did it,
Mhm.
which was really promising to me to see. Okay, here's some people who they never did this. They don't know nothing.
But they were
about it.
down.
They're not involved in these things that usually go on. Yeah, but they're like, yeah, let's do it, and they did it. And the ones who usually are around cultural things, they didn't want no part of it.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, whether that was a personal choice or just they were busy, but and there was a little resistance to saying, no, that's not the way we do it, and we just didn't let that deter. But what I need to know, and I like to hear from Kamia and Brenda, is what is a deed that's equitable from a woman's perspective today? go.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
What do you think?
And don't say making good fry bread.
Nay.
And it could be the same as a man. I just don't know. I just don't know what the female perspective is. And
I feel like it's a contribution to your family, like what I contribute to my family.
Right.
Whether it be helping with the kids, making dinner, getting us together.
Right.
I don't know. Other than like being professional, having a good job.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of a hard comparison to then to now.
Yeah.
Well, it's without saying too. If a woman goes to war, that of course that counts.
They have to.
Right.
Yeah.
It has
So
to.
there's
Yeah.
that. Make sure
Yeah.
that's said.
That's said. And yeah.
Yeah, but that isn't like a change.
Yeah.
Right. So that.
But I think sometimes people still want to replace the war deed with something else, but we still should remember the
Right.
war deed
This is-
still counts.
Right. And I mean, that's, to me, it's kind of this thing where it's like, all right, we're talking about stuff that can be recognized, like deeds. And I almost, so there's that part of it. Like, it's a war deed. So what's comparable? A war deed.
Yeah.
Like, it's
So
right.
maybe,
And so then, like, to say like some other kind of a deed that's like
Kind of.
admirable.
Yeah.
maybe
or,
think of it this
you
way.
know.
There's the tier 1 deed.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
There's your tier 1.
All right. Yeah. You need
But
to.
then at the same time, there's these things, because we're not necessarily, it's twofold, this thing. This
Mhm.
question
Yeah.
is twofold. What it
Yeah.
is what can we celebrate as deeds today? But also, we still need to just do the dance.
Yeah.
We can't hem and haw.
Yeah.
Over
Right.
like,
Right.
sorry.
Yeah.
We can't hem and haw over, well, is that a deed? Is that not a deed? It's meanwhile, it needs to be done. When's the last time was it done?
Last time the boys won state, which was
17?
3 years ago.
Mhm.
17? Before that, when was the last time it was done?
We did it the year before that.
So 2 years consecutive.
Yeah.
So before that was when?
Probably
100 years?
Yeah, probably like
So do you want to wait another 100 years?
1890 or something.
You want to wait another 100
No,
years?
I don't think so.
No.
So I guess what I was saying
Yeah.
in the very beginning when we first talked about this, the theme of the time was war because it was for survival.
Mhm.
Because you need to access your hunting grounds. If somebody's there, there's going to be battle. So if that doesn't happen no more,
It's
today
economy.
Yeah.
it doesn't happen
Yeah.
today. So if we take that out and say, well, something replaced it,
Mhm.
something helps us to survive today as tribal people. What is it then? And Mike hinted at education.
Yeah.
But what else from a
I mean,
female perspective?
So like education helps mostly in a non-cultural, like to
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
function in your life in a non-cultural way. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a thing that is good for you and maybe good for others who see it and good for the community, definitely. But it's not like going to help culturally unless it directly relates to that. Like if you study that. So, but I do think that there's this knowledge that we're talking about that has to be gained, that has to be continued. So I would think that when people learn something,
Like language.
yeah. So
Language is a big one.
So people who are able to learn language, who are able to learn like other kinds of things. I mean, I don't know why it was on my mind, but maybe just the we were talking about the bitterroot, but like a camas bake, a pit bake.
Right.
How many people know how to do that?
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing it as a kid, and I was trying to think like, yeah, nope, I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
5 or 6 women and they're doing it.
yeah, and so like if I was gonna do that, I would have to find a whole bunch of people who were willing to help and would have to go and would have to gather things, and so that like that would be more of, I think, a similar kind of effort, maybe.
Right.
So somebody trying to gain all that knowledge.
Yeah.
So like acknowledge that, or like people who make stuff.
Right.
I mean, I know that when it comes to education, we're really big on, health field. We need to have
Right.
Indian doctors and nurses, and then education, we need Indian teachers and
Yeah.
business people. I think that's good. But also, I think that a lot of times people who make stuff happen, they're like the artists,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mhm.
They're the,
What about this? What about like retirements? Someone had a 30-year, 40-year career.
Yeah.
Is that a legitimate thing to say that person? That's a major accomplishment.
Professionalism. Yeah.
And I was thoroughly disappointed with when the dam was finally acquired. And I thought this is a perfect time to do that and
Mhm.
to honor those people who were part of that ongoing battle to make sure that we had the opportunity to buy back that dam. But just the people who organized the celebration of that weren't in the same mind frame as some other folks, and it didn't happen. So that's so that's in the vein of what you said. People who've worked tirelessly for 30, 40 years for the tribe to secure something,
Male or
good.
female.
Male or female, yeah.
Mhm.
So that, career service that helps the community, helps the tribe. That's pretty important. But I do too. I think too that the crafts people who not are just doing it for themselves, but they're sharing that knowledge and they're actually getting that craft or that activity into the mainstream of society. Like the canvas bake. If a group of women said, "All right, we're going to make this a goal to get this back into the community, teach people how to do it, or encourage people," that would be.
This is actually kind of sparking up some ideas here. Like we're awarded grants in Indian country in general, but here on the res, like say you're awarded a grant to run the Head Start program or whatever.
Yeah.
Every time those reports are when that grant period ends and they're re-awarded the grant, that's another time to say, look, here's a reason to celebrate. We got this going. We were successful in the last go around. We were awarded it again.
Yeah.
The idea though is to make it normal.
Yeah.
That this isn't a weird thing.
Yeah.
For someone, if someone says, "Did you go to the scalp dance?" and then they'll say, "Oh yeah, I was there," and that's the kind of conversations people want to have.
And so maybe like thinking about it, and again going back to this idea of like a war deed or something like that, that it almost makes it seem like this incredibly important thing. So this is going to happen, like you're saying, once a decade, instead of more frequently. That this is.
Yeah. It would probably be the goal to have it every early powwow. There's a reason to have one every year. I would imagine.
Yeah.
But in that, you don't want it to fall under the umbrella of the committee because it still has to be organic and like.
And it can't be a spectacle. It can't be the 4th of July spectacle.
That's the rodeo. That's the world class rodeo.
I don't know. That's what we really tried hard to make it not that. We don't want this to be a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do it like beforehand. Leading up or after, like crows have
or even
crow day
during
on Monday,
or
and then subsequent days after that.
Dinner break. A lot of that stuff, those Warriors homecomings, the Shoshone dance, those things happen at dinner break, and it's only because the belief in doing things in public,
right,
and the public has to see it, for it to be official, So then they'll say, "We're going to do this here. Go about your business, but say you saw this." That so and so spoke of his deeds or whatever.
Then you have people that, what are these guys doing? They're not supposed to be doing that. Look at it, it's gonna rain. They're making it rain, or they're making it blow, or.
But
that's gonna happen.
Their fault.
That's gonna happen.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Way. It is.
It goes back to the confidence, though.
It does.
People securing themselves don't. Be like, well, that's good. They're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go eat my nachos, but I'm glad they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it that way, but that's cool. They're doing it.
At least they're doing it.
I wouldn't sing those songs, but
but that's
I pray for them.
Right.
And that's why it's raining right now.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
But I'm gonna eat my nachos.
That seems a little too familiar, Sean Dean. How about when a publication happens? Let's say the IRC puts out their first major publication. I think at the beginning, sometimes the decision has to be made that maybe at the beginning, some of those accomplishments might be deemed minor down the road.
Right.
But it's the idea of
Right.
of it being seen by people, and the understanding of it grows. So
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be set. Like, so now that we've done it once, precedent says we got to do it for everybody. No.
no,
It's not an automatic because of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get the scalp dance badge.
yeah, your Indian sash with all your patches,
Yeah.
your Vandenberg camp patch, your horse camp.
It's all in CFR 25.
Yeah,
I
your
thought.
horse
Yeah.
camp. Your culture committees meeting. You went to 7 culture committee meetings. Patch.
That's the red one. The red was the 7 meeting.
Mhm.
Now you get to 14.
Mm-hmm. You broke down in the South Fork. That's one right there.
Fought fire at least
Yeah.
1 year
Yeah,
on
yeah.
a MIF crew.
On a mid crew. That's old school, huh? Yeah, you and then you went to Camp Crew and you finished out in Halifax.
Well, let's wrap this up.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
let's do it, man.
I think we should take this question to the public, a more public forum. Maybe we'll do a Facebook Live session. Maybe let that be a theme. See if we can generate some answers or some responses. What other people's ideas on?
Throw it up on the Facebook though.
Yeah.
Right now, I would say ask
Get
the
them
question.
prepped.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
What are these things? So
What are the deeds today?
yeah,
And it's not about making good fry bread.
no, we gotta get
No.
away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Ribbon shirts and fry bread.
Yeah, come on.
Over it.
All right. We'll wrap it up then. Good? You guys good?
I'm good.
Anything
man.
else?
Oh, were you shaking my hand?
No.
No touching.
Anything else?
No touching.
Anything else? Good? Everybody's good? All right.
We're good.
We're done then. We're out.
Thank you for joining us on this episode, and to learn more, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at IRC_SKC. You can find us also on Facebook and YouTube by searching SKC Indigenous Research Center. You can also visit our website at irc.skc.edu. Don't forget to join us next time as we continue our discussions on Indigenous research, Indigenous research methodologies, and Indigenous worldviews.